Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into an absolutely fascinating concept: why doing exceptionally well with money has surprisingly little to do with how smart you are, and literally everything to do with how you behave. It's a topic that affects every single one of us, right? Yet it's so often completely misunderstood. We're going to break down the incredible insights from Morgan Housel's work to see exactly why finance isn't just about math and spreadsheets.
Okay, let's jump right into this ultimate contrast. Picture this. On one side, you have Ronald Reed. He was a humble, rural janitor and gas station attendant who swept floors at J.C. Penney. The guy lived in a tiny $12,000 house, and his main hobby? Chopping firewood. But when he passed away in 2014, he completely shocked everyone by leaving behind an $8 million fortune, mostly donated to his local hospital and library. Now, on the flip side, we have Richard Foscone. He was everything Ronald wasn't. We're talking a Harvard-educated Merrill Lynch executive with an MBA, a guy who built this massive 18,000-square-foot mansion with 2 elevators and 7 garages. But guess what? When the 2008 financial crisis hit, Richard went entirely bankrupt, and that massive home was foreclosed.
I mean, wow, right? This highlights exactly what we're talking about today. Think about it. In what other industry on earth could a janitor with zero formal training completely outperform a highly educated, highly connected executive? You would never, ever see a janitor perform a better open-heart surgery than a Harvard-trained doctor. But in finance, it happens, and it proves that finance isn't some hard, math-based science. It's actually a soft skill. It's governed by psychology, personal history, and emotion.
Section 1. Why no one is crazy.
You know, we so often look at other people and think they have totally lost their minds with what they're doing with their money. But let's take a step back and ask ourselves, what does the stock market actually look like to you compared to someone born in a completely different generation? We all go through life anchored to a set of views about how money works. But here's the crazy part. Your personal lived experience makes up maybe 0.0000001% of what has actually happened in the world, while making up roughly 80% of how you think the world works. To put that into perspective, just think about how your literal birth year changes your financial mindset. Take the S&P 500 returns. If you were born in 1970, the S&P 500 increased almost tenfold during your teens and 20s. To you, the stock market looked like this magical wealth-building machine. But if you were born in 1950, the market went absolutely nowhere during those exact same impressionable years. Those two people are naturally going to have wildly different risk appetites. And neither one is dumb. They just lived in completely different financial universes.
It's the exact same story with inflation. If you grew up in the 1960s, you learned to deeply fear inflation. You vividly remembered gas lines and paychecks stretching less and less each week. But if you happened to be born in 1990, stable prices taught you a completely different economic reality. Honestly, inflation probably barely crossed your mind until very recently. You just cannot expect these two groups to react to the same financial advice in the exact same way.
Let's use this to build a little empathy in real time. Let's talk about lottery tickets. The lowest income households actually spend over $400 a year on lotto tickets, which is wild because that's often happening while they are struggling to come up with $400 for an emergency. Now, to someone with a comfortable salary, that sounds totally crazy. But if we go step by step through a low-income earner's logic, we see something completely different. Step 1, you're living paycheck to paycheck. Step 2, traditional savings feel literally impossible. So step 3, buying a lottery ticket, it actually isn't bad math to them. It is purchasing a tangible dream of a better life that they otherwise simply cannot afford. In that moment, it makes perfect sense. We also have to reassure ourselves that we are all basically financial newbies. Historically speaking, older men just worked until they died. The idea of stopping work entirely is incredibly recent. Just consider that modern financial vehicles like the 401k only started in 1978. The Roth IRA, that was born in 1998. The expectation that everyone is just going to magically know how to self-fund a 20-year retirement through complex market investing is a massive, brand new historical shift.
So if you feel lost, give yourself a break. Society has literally only been doing this for a few decades. Section 2. The siblings, luck, and risk. These twin forces, luck and risk, heavily dictate our outcomes. Take Bill Gates, for example. We rightfully celebrate him for his unmatched genius and incredible work ethic. But we absolutely cannot ignore the sheer luck involved in his story. In 1968, he just happened to attend Lakeside School in Seattle. Because of a remarkably forward-thinking Mother's Club rummage sale, Lakeside became one of the only high schools on the entire planet that possessed a computer terminal. Most universities at the time didn't even have what 8th grader Bill Gates had access to. That unique alignment of cash and foresight gave Gates an unbelievable head start. If you actually do the math of high school-aged kids in 1968, only about 300 out of 303 million global students had this kind of access. That means Bill Gates experienced a literal 1 in a million stroke of luck. Even he admits, if there had been no Lakeside, there would have been no Microsoft. But we've got to flip that coin over and remember the other side. Bill Gates had a best friend at Lakeside named Kent Evans. By Gates' own account, Kent was the smartest student in the class. They schemed together, planned their futures as CEOs together, and shared that exact same brilliant drive. Kent Evans, very, very likely, would have been a founding partner of Microsoft. But tragically, Kent lost his life in a mountaineering accident before he even graduated high school. The odds of dying on a mountain in high school, they're roughly 1 in a million. Evans experienced a 1 in a million risk. It perfectly reinforces that luck and risk are identical forces, just acting in opposite directions. The world is simply too complex to allow 100% of your actions to dictate 100% of your outcomes. So, what's the big takeaway here? We need to be very, very careful about who we praise and who we try to emulate. We should really stop trying to copy extreme outliers like Bill Gates or Cornelius Vanderbilt. When outcomes are that extreme, the role of random luck and risk is just incredibly high. Instead, we should be looking for broad, repeatable patterns of success, like the fact that people who have control over their own time tend to be much happier. Section 3. The power of enough. Okay, this brings us to what is arguably the most dangerous trap in personal finance, when rich people do crazy things. Let's look at Rajat Gupta. He was the wildly successful CEO of McKinsey, worth an estimated $100 million. Or Bernie Madoff, who before his famous Ponzi scheme ran a totally legitimate market-making business, pulling in tens of millions a year. Both of these guys had absolute financial freedom, immense prestige, and massive power. Yet they threw away their reputations and their freedom, ending up with federal prison sentences. Why on earth would they do that? Because they were unnecessarily greedy for more. They risked what they already had and actually needed for money they didn't have and literally didn't need. To avoid their fate, you really have to remember a few core rules. First, you have to stop the goalpost from moving. If your expectations rise equally with your income, you are never going to feel satisfied. You're just on a treadmill. Second, yes, capitalism generates wealth, but it also generates a whole lot of envy. You absolutely must avoid the unwinnable game of social comparison. Just think about it for a second. A rookie athlete earning $500,000 feels completely broke next to Mike Trout earning $36 million. But then Mike Trout feels broke next to a hedge fund manager making $300 million. And that guy, he feels broke next to Jeff Bezos. The ceiling is infinite. Finally, realize that enough is not too little. It's simply realizing that an insatiable appetite for more will eventually push you right over the edge to the point of regret. Which leads us to the ultimate mindset shift perfectly captured in a beautiful little story. The great Vanguard founder, John Bogle, used to tell the story about a billionaire's party on Shelter Island. The legendary author Kurt Vonnegut tells his friend Joseph Heller, who wrote the famous novel Catch-22, that their billionaire host made more money in a single day than Heller's wildly popular book had made in its entire history. Heller's response? He simply said, "Yes, but I have something he will never have. Enough." So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative thought to apply to your own life and your own wallet.
true wealth isn't just a massive number sitting in a bank account somewhere. It's the ability to finally step off that treadmill. So ask yourself today, are you blindly chasing a moving target, constantly risking your time, your health, and your happiness for things that don't truly matter? Or have you finally defined your enough?